No, I actually think it allows you to control your desires so you can pursue your goals.
I don't think submitting to a higher power is against someone's odds against their agency, because they're choosing to believe in a higher power. They're choosing to submit themselves to God. It's a very noble thing, in my opinion, to say that you're humble, you're not as good as this higher being, and I think it's a very noble thing that people definitely choose to do, and I respect that choice.
So I'm a Hindu and I don't claim to be very religious, but what I do know is that when you're submitting to a higher authority like God, you're engaging and exercising in your own free will. So I don't think that submitting to a higher authority is necessarily at odds with your free will, and you shouldn't be afraid of God. It should be more about you understanding that this is what you want to do, not what religion is pushing upon you.
I think that submitting to a higher power is perfectly in line with our concept of free will. I think if you are choosing to do something, regardless of what that is, it's exercising free will. So in the case of submitting to a higher power, that's just an extension of choosing to do something. So you would choose to do something because you see a benefit in it, whether it's wisdom, whether it's advice. I submit to my parents' advice for how to do things. And even as a Christian, I submit to kind of what the Bible says and what kind of the doctrine of the faith.
Yeah, I don't think that submission to a sort of higher power or will is at all at odds with personal agency, and that I think they can complement each other really nicely. I think if you have a higher power as something that guides you in your own path and kind of helps you inform your own decisions, those are still your own decisions, and that's great that can really direct you in the right direction and, I don't know, bolster your life.
My personal belief is that we live in a universe governed by and watched over by a higher power, but that doesn't mean that we don't have free will. While, you know, our destinies may be preordained and our paths set for us, we certainly get to make choices that help us move along this path. That's what I believe.
I don't believe that believing in a higher power compromises my control over my own free will, because I believe that I have complete control in making decisions, and any higher power acts as a guide or assists me in getting to where I want to be. And I don't think that those two things need to be mutually exclusive.
Personally, where I am in my life right now, I do believe that submitting to a higher power kind of takes away my power to my individual power. So I grew up in a Christian family. My mom took me to church since I was born, and throughout my attending church, you know, it was a wonderful experience, a great community of people, and there were several times where I did completely submit to God, and those moments I did feel empowered, you know, the empowerment of a higher spirit fulfilling all your needs and your heart. But every single time I had that moment, it felt contradictory, because I felt that even though I was empowered by this higher being, I also felt like that was me forsaking my power to fulfill my own needs and to make choices that might be unconventional, but that might lead to my fulfillment and happiness. So whenever those moments always seemed contradictory to me, and it was always a struggle, kind of going back and forth between, you know, completely submitting to a higher power and you know, having full individual will. And in my opinion, I think it shouldn't be that finite of a decision. I think it's kind of like a scale. You know, I think religion is kind of a scale in terms of how religious you can be.
So I think what makes us responsible as individuals is being able to do otherwise, to choose willingly, to make choices that we haven't subscribed to in the past. And so, in my understanding, you know, ideology and religion and politics all play a role in people's lives, contextualizing them within a greater whole. And there's nothing wrong with that as such.
But to live authentically, I think people need to accept shared ideologies or shared worldviews with an understanding that nevertheless they are still responsible for those choices. And so I think it's important to live autonomously, to also live within a greater societal context, and at the same time recognize that your decisions are not static, and that we should live, instead of dogmatically, proactively. And so I don't think the two are at odds. Instead, when we make choices to subscribe to a particular ideology, we do so willingly, and if those circumstances are met, then you can continue to live autonomously and live within a greater context.